Hello everyone and welcome back to another video on the channel. I'm your host Seiji McSwain, and for today's video I'm going to be going over the 10 strangest moments in NFL draft history. And without further ado, let's get right into it. Now coming in at number 10, NFL executive Don Weiss mispronounces Brett Favre's name in the 1991 draft. Now, getting someone's name correct, especially on such an important day as the day they are welcomed into the NFL, should be one of the most basic courtesies extended to a draft prospect. However, when Brett Favre was selected in the second round by the Atlanta Falcons in 1991, that was not extended to him.
Atlanta has selected Brett Favre, quarterback, Southern Mississippi.
So Atlanta gets a favor by selecting Brett Favre from Southern Mississippi, quarterback, as we had suggested.
Even though it was a Hall of Fame career, it does seem somewhat appropriate that the guy with the most career interceptions should have a mistake to his name. Hopefully this won't happen again, as pronunciation instructions are now provided during drafting. Now coming in at number 9, we have Drew Pearson and Pat McAfee roast Philadelphia and Tennessee when announcing picks in 2017 and 2019. When the NFL began moving the draft away from Radio City Music Hall in New York, beginning in 2015 with Chicago, it gave many fans across the country the opportunity to participate in the draft weekend experience in their hometown. However, it did give a lot of former players, who tend to announce picks to the live audience during the middle rounds, the opportunity to get involved as well, and not always in a polite way. This was perhaps the best demonstrated by Dallas Cowboys receiver Pearson and Indianapolis Colts punter Pat McAfee, who used their time to criticize the cities of Philadelphia and Nashville respectively on behalf of their former teams.
Drew Pearson.
Career in the NFL. Thank you. I am honored as an undrafted free agent to be selected to make the Cowboys' second-round draft pick, and on behalf of the five-time world champion Dallas Cowboys, Hall of Fame owner Jerry Jones, Gene Jones and the Jones family, Coach Jason Garrett, all the Cowboy players that played before me, that played with me, and played after me, with the second pick and the 60th pick in the second round, the Dallas Cowboys select defensive back from Colorado, Chidobe Awuzie.
Not man of the year. He's man of
Hello,
America.
Nashville. I'm not going to say a single word about the Tennessee Titans record against the Indianapolis Colts because I was a punter, and there's no reason for me to talk about that. With that being said, we did not punt much against the Tennessee Titans, so you probably have no clue who I am to begin.
Now coming in at number 8, the Los Angeles Chargers didn't have enough fans to attend the virtual draft party in 2020. Due to the pandemic, much of the operations for the 2020 NFL Draft had to be conducted remotely, making it a memorable event. To make sure the fans didn't miss out on the fun, some of them from all 32 teams were asked to participate virtually in Commissioner Roger Goodell's living room. One minor issue, though the Los Angeles Chargers, who have had issues in the past getting fans to games, couldn't even manage to get enough people there, so they had to cover the screen in logos instead. Not exactly the best way to convey your fan base to the rest of the league. Now coming in at number 7, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers use a parrot to help announce a draft pick in 2018. Less focus is placed on individuals who are selected on day 3 of the draft once the early round razzmatazz fades away. As a result, teams have a little more leeway to be creative with their draft picks. As part of their growing presence across the pond, the Jacksonville Jaguars have turned to UK fans to announce their draft picks. None, however, are as on-brand or as entertaining as when the Tampa Bay Buccaneers use their famous pirate ship inside Raymond James Stadium, along with the assistance of a parrot Jaja to announce the draft of Jordan Whitehead.
To a fake pirate ship in a half-empty stadium. That's exactly what I wanted.
With the 117th pick in the 2018 NFL Draft, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers select Jordan Whitehead, defensive back from Pittsburgh.
Mike, before you start.
How about this young man? Let's talk about the...
So, I'm not sure if Jaja was the parrot or the woman.
Well, Jaja was the parrot.
Here's the parrot.
Okay, was the parrot.
Okay.
That would be Gabor.
Okay.
That would be Gabor.
All right, well, let's pay some respect to Jordan Whitehead, who's a true free safety center fielder.
Now coming in at number 6, Danny Shelton breaks the tradition and picks up Roger Goodell for a bear hug in 2015. The commissioner hug Roger Goodell gives to those who cross the stage has become one of the more well-known customs in draft classes. After making their announcement, he is the first person they encounter, and it's a great way to be welcomed into the league after finally achieving their objectives. Shelton, a defensive lineman from Washington, who is 6'2" and 345 pounds, took it a step further and lifted the commissioner off the ground like an imposing quarterback by giving him a huge bear hug.
To give the hug to the commissioner and get that Cleveland Browns jersey. Again, we are now 12 picks into this draft and not a single trade. And the Cleveland Browns were supposed to be trade happy.
There's your bear hug.
We might lose him. That was the first ever commissioner lift, I believe.
You wearing a skirt? That's a lava.
Fantastic.
Now coming in at number 5, one of the most, the funniest event, Don Terry Poe and Roger Goodell share a somewhat intimate moment together in 2012. While Shelton might have picked up the commish, at least he didn't go as far down the line as Don Terry Poe did when his name was called by the Kansas City Chiefs. Poe went on one step further and looking at some snapshots of the night, looked as if he was going to in for a kiss with Goodell, which I suppose is one good way to keep on his good side and try to avoid being fined further down the line. Perhaps James Harrison should have considered doing the same. It might have reduced the number of fines he received. Now coming in at 4, we have the Minnesota Vikings delay their pick, allowing 2 teams to jumbo above them in 2003. With the season ending in February and the draft not until April, you'd think teams would have plenty of time to figure out who they're drafting. In the case of the Minnesota Vikings in 2003, however, according to the story, they were in talks with a number of other teams about a possible trade to get out of that spot and acquire more picks later on. They reportedly agreed to a trade with Baltimore, but the Vikings did not notify the league, allowing time to pass and the pick to move on. The Vikings were able to move down to choice number 9 in the draft, and where they ultimately chose defensive tackle Kevin Williams, thanks to the delay, which also allowed the Carolina Panthers and Jacksonville Jaguars to make their selections.
In 2003, the Vikings, with the 7th overall pick, they just didn't pick somebody, and their time ran out. And
were they were aware it was their turn?
They were extremely aware that it was their turn. So here's what happened. 7th overall pick. They knew who they wanted. They said, why don't we try to trade back? We can still get this guy, but hey, what if we pick up a few extra draft choices in the process? Win-win.
Yeah.
So they were talking to the Ravens and the Jaguars. The Jaguars had the pick right after them, and the Ravens had the 10th pick. Both teams wanted the same player. So the Vikings were in a nice place of we have exactly what they want, and we'll move back and still get our guy. We're certain we're going to be able to get our guy. They agree to a deal with the Ravens. They were going to get a 4th and a 6th round pick, move back to the 10th spot, be totally good. They called the league to let them know, hey, talk to Baltimore. They're cool with it. We're cool with it. Here's the deal. And then they kind of kicked their feet up and waited for Baltimore to call in their side and verify with the league.
Great. Let this celebration begin. Mission accomplished.
Right. But here's where a second rule comes into play that seems pretty obvious. In order for a trade to go through, both teams have to call it in to basically prevent one team from just being no, we swear they said they would send us everything.
Yeah, and they made us the point person, so we'll do the calling and just make sure we get the guy. Yeah.
Right. The Ravens did not get in touch with the league to say, hey, here's the trade. So the moment that the clock hit 0, the Jaguars with the 8th pick, who were also in trade talks with them, who also were aware the Ravens were trying to jump up, they saw the clock hit 0, and so they just turned in their pick.
Yeah, you snooze, you lose. Classic rhyme.
So the Jaguars turned in their pick, and that is how they wound up drafting Byron Leftwich. And according to the NFL rules, now the Vikings could just do their thing. But the Panthers also were watching what happened, and they had the next pick, so they immediately turned their pick in and took Jordan Gross, who wound up being an incredible offensive lineman for them for like a decade. And then finally the Vikings were like, oh yeah, let's turn in our name. And
why?
So what it essentially wound up being was like they went from the 7th pick to the 9th pick without getting anything in return. In real time, the Jaguars, the Panthers, the Vikings, and then the Ravens made all 4 picks within 4 minutes because they were just busting ass to get up there.
Yeah, you'd think that sense of urgency would be felt across the board. I guess it's so strange that one team would be so unaware of the clock while the other ones are so on top of it.
For sure. And I think what that probably was caused by is it seemed like they were really upset with the Ravens. So the next day when the Vikings head coach, Mike Tice, he was talking to a ton of Vikings fans who were just booing the shit out of him.
Good talk, good talk.
He was like, no, we got our guy, I swear. We totally got the guy we wanted. We didn't screw this up. And also, we had a deal in place with the Ravens. They just didn't call it in.
It's on them. He also used the word consummated, which kind of just sucks.
Yeah, you don't go out of your way to use consummated.
Yeah, get a thesaurus.
Unless you're bragging about something very specific, which I don't think he was. So did the Ravens sabotage the Vikings?
I'm not going to rule that out yet, but here's what they said.
Okay.
The Ravens owner came out and was like,
look, the deal was not consummated.
He also used that word.
Once it's in the air, you can't nod.
They claim to have called the league and gotten a busy signal.
Wait, what year did you say it was?
2003.
So, wait, wouldn't it just... Why does the NFL still have busy signals? Especially when everyone's going to be calling them. Shouldn't call waiting or multiple lines. It's also funny that the Ravens didn't call back again. It's well, we got a busy signal, so that deal is dead. Could it be possible that the Ravens went through this whole thing and then just didn't call to just be super mean?
And just said, busy signal.
Yeah, sorry, busy signal. We tried. Idiots. And then they laugh and laugh.
Could the Jaguars have been just spamming that one number and caused the busy signal themselves? There's just a lot of territory for theoretical sabotage.
Right.
Now coming in at number 3, the Baltimore Ravens do the same thing, but this time the Vikings benefit in 2011. After what happened in Minnesota, you'd think teams would have learned to get things in order on time, but no. The Baltimore Ravens and the Chicago Bears were also negotiating a trade in 2011, and in another case of intense karma on the Ravens' part, they made another mistake. The teams had apparently agreed to the trade, but this time while Baltimore confirmed it with the league, Chicago did not, and time ran out, allowing the Kansas City Chiefs to jump them. Unfortunately, it was only one team rather than two, but it was still not a good look for the Ravens, especially given their role in 2003. Now coming in at number 2, probably the most infamous event that's ever happened on draft night, Laramie Tunsil's draft night video becomes the story of the night in 2016. Now Tunsil, the tackle from Ole Miss, who some sites predicted would go as high as number 1 in the draft, saw what is meant to be one of the happiest nights of a player's life turn into a nightmare. However, on draft night, a video of him smoking a bong surfaced, causing him to fall down the draft order, with subsequent reports claiming that a number of teams removed him from their draft boards after seeing the video. He was eventually drafted by the Miami Dolphins at the 13th overall pick, a respectable position in the grand scheme of things, but it was still a nightmare night for the offensive lineman. Now, coming in at number 1, probably the most famous what-if story between Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers. So at number 1, we have Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers changed teams on draft night in 2004. A wide range of quarterback skill was there in the 2004 draft class, including Ben Roethlisberger, in addition to Manning and Phillip Rivers, all of whom went on to have successful NFL careers. Thus, in terms of who the then San Diego Chargers could have selected with the first choice, the world truly was their oyster. However, the Chargers chose Manning despite his father Archie, a former NFL quarterback himself, making it very clear that his son Eli would not play for them if taken. This created a very difficult scenario in New York on selection nights. Things worked out in the end with the Chargers and the Giants trading the rights to Rivers and Manning, sending Eli to New York and Rivers to Southern California. But it was certainly one of the most bizarre draft night events that football fans have ever witnessed.
Right off the top, Eli, why don't you want to play for the Chargers?
We're not really giving details right now. We've made our decision, and that's what we're sticking to.
Who's influenced you the most?
It's not really an influence. This is my decision. It was, I wanted to do this. I was not, told to do this. We talked about it, and I thought it was the best idea, so I went with it.
With the first choice in the 2004 NFL Draft, the San Diego Chargers select Eli Manning, quarterback, Mississippi.
So Chargers fans don't like it. They know that the Manning family is trying to get him to New York. Giants are up with the 4th pick, and they have a couple of quarterback options to choose from, as Eli taken by the Chargers first overall. So what do the Giants do at 4? You got Phillip Rivers, you got Ben Roethlisberger sitting there waiting to be taken, and the Giants indeed certainly need a quarterback. Paul Tagliabue, the commissioner at the time.
New York Giants select Phillip Rivers, quarterback, North Carolina State.
We told you. So there's Phil. He's not sure what in the wide world of sports is going on. He hears his name. Meanwhile, the Roethlisberger table's like, what? Manning's like, I've got to get my butt to New York. Rivers a Giant. For how long, though?
What are the teams telling you?
Well, I hadn't gotten a call yet from anybody. I'm just excited, as of right now, to be a Giant, and I don't know how everything's going to play out, but I'll be excited to see what happens.
The San Diego Chargers and the New York Giants have exchanged their draft picks, Eli Manning and Phillip Rivers. San Diego Chargers and the
So here's the trade. In the end, they trade quarterbacks, but also the Chargers get a 3rd, a 1st, and a 5th. Chris Berman, the GOAT, what do you have?
As Jackson Brown once sang, when you hear that crowd and you see those lights, you remember why you came.
And on top of that, the Chargers also had Michael Vick at one point. They traded him, and then they also had Drew Brees. And then he was backup for Ryan Leaf, and we all kind of know how that worked out. So, the Chargers missed out on 3 legendary quarterbacks, and they got Phillip Rivers and Ryan Leaf in 2 of those draft classes. So that, the Chargers may just be a cursed franchise, but they have Justin Herbert now, so I'm sure they should be in good hands at the quarterback position. While I'd want to say that I hope nothing goes wrong during this year's draft, the truth is that adding a little drama to the proceedings would not be the worst thing that could happen. And that'll be all for today's video. Thank you all for watching until the end. Make sure you go ahead and leave a comment on what you think or one of the strangest draft nights for one of your favorite teams. As well, while you're down there, go ahead and make sure you smash that like button and hit subscribe. We're 3 subscribers away from 200. So I'm going to be very, very thankful, if you guys go ahead and subscribe. And also share the video with anybody that you think may want to know more about these bizarre draft night occurrences. And again, that'll be all. Thank you for watching, and have a great rest of your day.